Hello, welcome to I Go Travel with Don Barnett. And down in the Mayan Riviera here, we went to a place called Xcaret, a big theme park. And I'd better explain this big hat. What am I doing with this sombrero in the jungle? Well, the goal of the Xcaret theme park is to portray all of Mexico. And Mexico is a big country. There's the west, there's the south, there's the northern part that's drier, and there's the jungle area. So we're going to look at all of Mexico, and that's why I thought I'd wear this sombrero. Here we are, still on Mexico's Mayan Riviera. You can see located in the lower right-hand side of this map. The theme park we're at is called Xcaret, where we watched world-class music, dance, and drama performances. Evening performances were held in a huge outdoor covered stadium. Things began with everyone lighting a candle to signify that the performances were about to begin. The floor ceremony started with all performers marching around the arena, including people and horses. The highlight was this rider with the Mexican flag. Green in the flag is for hope, white is for unity, and the red represents the blood of Mexico's national heroes. Mexico's coat of arms in the diagram above the flag shows a golden eagle, which is the national bird of Mexico, perched on a prickly pear cactus and gripping a snake in its beak and talons. When the ancient Aztecs saw the eagle and snake, they realized where to locate their city, their capital city, at Tenochtitlan, which is near Mexico City. For the Christian Spanish, it symbolized the victory of good, the eagle, over evil, the snake. Nations from around the world were represented at the show. I even spotted this Canadian flag. The dance of the Valadores is a popular tourist attraction. 5 men climb a high pole. 4 swing from ropes, while the 5th person on the top plays a flute, beats a drum, or sings. This ancient ritualistic dance originally was conducted to ask the gods to bring rain in times of drought. While we watch some of these various performances on the floor, I can tell you some things about Mexico itself. In ancient times, for example, Mexico was called Anahuac, 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 which meant land surrounded by water. And it was appropriate because in the Mexico City area, there was water everywhere, and islands were connected by a matrix of sometimes man-made, sometimes natural land bridges. When the Spanish first came, they called only the former Aztec capital city area as Mexico, and the rest of the countryside was referred to as New Spain. Today, the official name of Mexico is in English, the United States of Mexico. In Spanish, you would say Los Estados Unidos. Los means the, United States, Estados Unidos, and of Mexico is Mexicano. So in Spanish, it would sound something like Los Estados Unidos Mexicanos. Mexico claims a couple of firsts in the world. When Guillermo Camarena was only 17 years old in 1942, he invented the first early color television system. Can you imagine watching TV in black and white if it weren't for this inventor? And also, North America's first printing press was produced in Mexico City by a fellow by the name of Juan Pablo in 1539, and that was about 500 years ago. Mexico has no less than 34 World Heritage Sites called by UNESCO. And it also has the third highest mountain in North America, Mount Orizaba, which is behind only Canada's Mount Logan and Alaska's Denali Mountain. Like the coasts of Canada and the US, Mexico lies within the zone of the Pacific Ring of Fire, one of the most active volcanic regions in the world. And every once in a while, Mexico does get hammered by some pretty severe volcanic activity. And another interesting kind of a fact about Mexico is that its capital, Mexico City, is built on a massive mud base, and it is actually sinking over time. 16 million indigenous people speak 68 native languages, many of them struggling to exist in a language sea of Spanish, which is not unlike the story of indigenous languages struggling against English in countries like Canada and the United States. Here's a couple of singers with their Western sombrero hats, the big ones. And like I said before, it is not characteristic of the jungle, but more characteristic of Western and Northern Mexico. Like elsewhere, people do not wear a lot of hats. Men do not. But if they do down here in the jungle, they don't wear a big sombrero. I guess it would get knocked off all of the time by the thick tree branches. But hats are more of this smaller style, like in this picture here. It's almost more of a Panama hat. But I don't want to tell you too much about Panama hats until we go to Panama and make a travelogue there, which we're going to do in the future. So keep tuned in here. But let's look at some other parts of Mexico that was portrayed at various performances, both at night at Xcaret and elsewhere where we attended them. This chart helps understand differences in the people's ethnic backgrounds in our three nations of North America. The numbers are approximations, and they serve only to show some of these differences. Look how the proportion of mixed and indigenous people in Mexico is much higher than in Canada or the US. Similarly, the proportion of those classified as white is much lower in Mexico than in Canada or the US. Knowing these kinds of differences helps understand why Spanish-oriented Mexico is different than English-oriented Canada or the US. These differences need to be accepted, understood, and appreciated if we are to continue successfully communicating, working, and trading with one another. Mexican cuisine was on display at Xcaret, and you'll probably recognize its many of their main ingredients, such as chili peppers, beans, avocado, tomatoes, and herbs. Mexico has a large population, and its grocery stores were comparable to any elsewhere, including at home here. Here are some pictures I took of some of the mango, cantaloupe, and pepper bins in the grocery store where we went to. The main food ingredient in Mexico here is corn, more so than, for example, wheat as it is where I live, or rice in Asian lands. Often the corn is ground to a dough called masa, M-A-S-A, and used to make tamales and tortillas that date back to early Spanish times. They roll the corn tortillas in sauce, added with meat, cheese, vegetables, and call it an enchilada, And an enchilada is a food that dates back even further than the Spanish and way back to ancient Aztec times. These women were demonstrating work with fabrics, and the clothing design always has been important in this part of the world. Many Central and South American traditional cultures had a god of weaving. Often women were buried with their woven fabrics, usually made from the yucca and maguey plants and palm trees. The ruling Aztecs demanded cotton from conquered people along the coastal regions. Cotton textile production paralleled that in Western Europe and the US and rivaled the world level which occurred in England in the 18th century. Nowadays, fabric is made from wool and silk and sewn often with gold and silver thread. Examples of a unique Mexican dress that you probably know about include the serape, which is a long blanket and usually worn by men, and the poncho, which is an outer protective garment used to keep warm and shield against wind and rain. Here are some more dances on the floor that we watched. There are numerous unique Mexican dances as well as unique and characteristically Latin American music. Okay, so there you have it. Mexico is a big country and a lot of variety. Every country and every place has a story to tell. And we'll come back and tell more stories and find out more things about other places. We're heading out to some places, maybe in the southwestern U.S., maybe to Alaska. Hit the subscribe button and stay tuned. You'll be notified when we're going to these places, and I'll be posting them periodically. This is I Go Travel with Don Barnett. Adios.